What's up everybody, LUI here, salute you wherever you are. You might need a protein shake. That's gonna be an interesting one. As you guys know, Arnold Schwarzenegger himself in his event, namely the Arnold Classic 2015, sparkled a serious debate and a controversy to say the least when he called out the judges who are basically giving awards to guys who are not aesthetic. He called them, rather than having the V taper, right now they're having like a bottle shape taper, which is definitely uncalled for, as you guys know. If you missed that that speech, the link would be at the bottom in the description box. I enjoy you greatly to watch it. Anyway, what you're looking at is actually two Mr. Olympias. Haney, who won 8-time Mr. Olympia, and of course Ronnie Coleman won exactly 8 Mr. Olympia as well. Both are the record holders. Now, they're two different eras. This guy was mainly in the 80s, and this one started in the 90s and until the mid 2000s, as you guys know. Two different physiques. As you guys know, the picture speaks louder than word. This guy here has a vacuum, a sight to be contemplated. Probably you youngsters will not even remember this because it does not exist in your era. Pretty much none of the current competitor is doing this, right? Now, of course, it is not a mandatory course for that matter, but let's go on. For the longest time, guys, bodybuilding was something like this. It is called the, you can say that Sean Ray is a reminiscent of the golden era, even though he was a 90s competitor, but he was still rocking a solid midsection, greatly appealing to look at physique. I salute that. This here is Ronnie Coleman, exactly the same dude you see here with a pregnancy issue. He happened to be an aesthetically pleasing to look at guy, especially in 1998 and 1999. Those are his two first Mr. Olympias. And even prior to that, he was still smaller, but his midsection all in for all was still under control. The rest is history. As you guys know, he gained a tremendous amount of mass, but he also gained a gut. Right, let's go on. May God bless his soul. This is Serge Nubret, one of the most classical, iconic physique. He died not a long time ago at the age of 73. This is again Ronnie Coleman, probably in 98 or 99, where his gut was still under control. I like this version, I do salute it. Right, he was still definitely appealing when he was posing. The flow of the physique was just good, and it goes to show that you can be a freaky when it comes to the mass while keeping a controlled midsection. Dude is not even gifted, he only have a 4-pack, but then again his midsection was absolutely under control. After 2003, unfortunately, as you guys know, it was a disaster. This guy right here is Cormier, right? As you guys know, he was one of the last one to rock a solid genuine vacuum pose, right? He was one of the last of the Mohicans alongside Sean Ray in the top ranks. There we go. This is actually where it all started. I will come back to this picture a little bit later. As you guys know, this here is Mr. Aesthetic himself, 1993 version of Flex Wheeler, probably his best version and probably was one of the most appealing to look at physiques of that time. Unfortunately, he had against him the best version of Dorian Yates. He was the most massive here. He ushered a new era. But don't get it twisted. At this time, he was still holding his gut. His gut was not suspect, right? As a matter of fact, admittedly, even himself, when you ask him what is the best version of your career, he always go back to 1993, even though he won Mr. Olympia 94, 95, 96, and 97, right? But he always go back to his second Mr. Olympia, namely this one, 1993. I agree with him. Anyway, this was the same year. These guys were still representing the aesthetics. You got Mr. Lee Labrada. His nickname is the Mass with Class. You guys know the Sultan of Symmetry, right? Flex Wheeler, and again, an uncrowned Mr. Olympia, a Hall of Famer, Mr. Sean Ray, rocking that undeniable vacuum right there. Let's go on. This is the same year, 1993, where Dorian won. He deserved it, right? Because even though he brought a serious mass and serious hardness, his gut was still under control, right? This is Mr. Brian Buchanan of the 80s. He was from Great Britain. Do not adjust your screen. This is not Photoshop. Back then, that was not even a Photoshop. This is a genuine picture. I mean, look at his waist. It was almost a caricature, for God's sake. This dude is a current competitor. Just, it goes to show that you can still rock solid mass. His name is Jason Hugh, by the way. I do salute you, bro. This guy still rocks a vacuum while having probably one of the craziest forearms in the business and a serious mass, right? So that's it. So one cannot dismiss the other. You can have a mass while rocking a solid vacuum. Of course, needless to represent him, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger is like a statue, for God's sake. And if somebody can basically bring back the game of aesthetic, it needs to be Dorian Yates. It's not the first time he speaks out. He called out Dorian Yates back in 1996. I'll come back to that a little bit later. Ronnie Coleman, when he was ecstatic, probably a wild guess. I'd say this was like in 1995, right? Prior to his Olympia spree. This is Danny Padilla of the 80s. Look at that. Aesthetic all day and daily. This was 1993 Arnold Classic, of course won by none other than himself, Flex Wheeler, the best version of himself, admittedly. Right, look at him. This was in the Olympia. Solid physique, the bellies for days. He was a solid threat for Dorian Yates. Unfortunately, he had an accident in 1994, destroyed his Benz, and that was a setback for his career. Let's go on. Again, Mr. Brian Buchanan, looking like a caricature, for God's sake. Arnold Schwarzenegger rocking that vacuum shamelessly. Again, this picture was not photoshopped. It was just crazy. Back then, the proportions had their importance. Look at the solid, one of the craziest chests of all time. World-class biceps, but you know, the waistline was always under check. I salute that. There we go, another picture. So back in the day when they were, you know, building that physique, they were always having in mind, keep the waist, you know, keep the V-taper, keep the waistline very, very thin. And that's what's up. Undeniable. The shadow, not the shadow, sorry. The oak himself. There we go, another picture right there. You guys know them. You can go through them real quick. This one is Frank Zane, another Mr. Olympia. Not the biggest, but then again, probably undeniably the most famous vacuum picture of all time is this one. A lot of people refer to it. It was definitely a sight to be seen. Look at it. It was absolutely stupendous, if you ask me. There we go. And then came this guy, 8-time Mr. Olympia. One of the most appealing physique, one of the best backs ever, Mr. Lee Haney. He took it from 1984 up to 1991. That's what's up. This is Arnold, just working out that vacuum right there. Again, Jason Hugh, the guy I told you about, crazy arms development, one of the best forearms in the business, while still rocking a solid vacuum shamelessly, bro. He does represent. I salute you, bro. Again, Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympia, one of the best one ever. By the way, this guy said lately, well, unfortunately not lately, like a few years ago, that Cedric McMillan should be the next Mr. Olympia, and I couldn't agree more. We'll come back to that a little bit later though. There we go, rocking a crucifix pose, one of the best backs ever. The balance was absolutely out of this world with a solid vacuum as usual. Arnold Schwarzenegger himself doing some training for that vacuum. You can salute the stretch marks on the lats right there. And this was the last time Lee Haney competed. It was in 1991, and Dorian was still small, right? He placed second, and the commentator back then, he said he looked like Lee Haney with better legs. So he was still aesthetic back then, right? He did represent, and even in 1992 he was still rather small, and he placed first ahead of Kevin Levrone, but he was the game changer. He ushered the change back in 1993 with some crazy pictures that I will show you in a while. Now, this is the current state. This was, you know, a crazy mass development of Ronnie Coleman, definitely in the 2000 era. Of course, you know, he's one of the craziest, still one of the best bodybuilders ever. But unfortunately, when his writer's right, his gut was not a sight to be saluted. But if you go back in time, as I said, 1998 and 1999, his two first Mr. Olympias, he was absolutely, in my reckoning, in my opinion, his best shapes ever, right? Even though he won 6 Mr. Olympias after that, but his gut was always growing. So look at the difference, right? He was still massive here, but you know, the proportions, I definitely prefer this one here. He was still appealing to look at. My gutless his soul, as you guys know, Serge Nubret again. He was well in his 40s, probably he was age 45 in this picture right here, but he was still a solid, aesthetically representing that guy all day and daily. And again, Mr. Sean Ray. Now, let's go back to another photo collage right here, which I called actually the freaks, right? I'm gonna start with this picture I told you about. Now, this gentleman right here, as you guys know, is none other than Dorian Yates. These are the pictures, a photo shoot that surfaced probably 3 or 4 weeks prior to Mr. Olympia 1993. They have been posted on Flex magazine and they created a wave. Wow, what has he done? It was the first time actually ever that we have seen such a transformation in merely 1 year. He gained so much mass while retaining his hardness. It was absolutely uncharted territory, unheard of, and it mesmerized basically the masses. What's going on? There was no internet, but we were absolutely shocked. Look at him. He was absolutely stupendous. You know, it was still grainy, hard, while still retaining that mass. And don't get me wrong, his waistline was still good. As I said, in 1993, it was still good. But unfortunately, these pictures ushered a new era of mass craziness, right? And everybody was trying to match him, right? But this happened a little later. His stomach got descended a bit, slowly but surely, with the years. As you guys can see, this was not in 1993. It was at least in 1994, since his left biceps was basically hurt. He hurt that few weeks prior to Mr. Olympia 1994, and then unfortunately, slowly but surely, he lost the aesthetics, right? This was a disappointed Sean Ray, probably in 1994, right? Sean Ray voiced his concern about that mass era. You can hear him actually in the Battle of Mr. Olympia 1996. He was absolutely calling out Dorian Yates, Kevin Lavroni, Nasser El-Sambari, the 3 guys who were mass monsters that were placing basically in front of him, and they were definitely not the most aesthetic physiques, as I said. Let's move on. This was probably in 1995. As you guys can see, Ray was the only one still representing the aesthetic era, shamelessly rocking a vacuum in between Dorian Yates and the late Nasser El-Sambari. Nasser was another dude who took it. You know, he was small, Nasser, don't get me wrong. If you go back to 1994, he placed second in the Night of Champion after, what's his name, Mike Francois, but he was still small. But then when he saw that the flavor of the month is mass, he went onto this. He became a freak, one of the biggest freaks. The fans loved him, because we need to recognize that it's a fan base that love freaks. Those are a minority, but since it is a niche discipline, this bodybuilding, it attracts big orexia guys. So he was loved senselessly, this guy. I mean, his gut was absolutely, you know, outstanding as well. But people loved this kind of new mass. The gut was sticking out. There was no more vacuum. But this was him when he was small. Look at the difference. So he went from this aesthetic guy, this was probably in 1993 or 94, I think it's 94, he went to this, just to please the new mass monster era. So this is what's up, right? This is Jean-Pierre Fuchs out from Switzerland. This was a quite known photo shoot. They did some photo shoot for Flex magazine, if I'm not mistaken. And he was another monster. He was deemed to be the next Mr. Olympia because he had a solid back and he was massive. But unfortunately, his gut was shamelessly out of control. Nasser, as I said, he was like rocking, representing the freaks, was placing second to Dorian Yates. And this was the photo shoot they have done. As you guys know, if they don't control their gut, both of them they look pregnant. This is Jean-Pierre Fuchs and this is Nasser El Somebody. My God bless his soul. This was Fuchs, you know, each year he was coming bigger and the gut was absolutely outstanding. Each time he turns, it was pregnancy 101, bro. Maternity all day and daily, bro. Alright? So this was him back then. This was him. This is him right now. He lost all his gains. Obviously, he's no longer taking the vitamin S, as you guys know, because you know he had a major injury. I'm gonna show you in a bit. As I said, his back was a sight to be seen. One of the best backs ever, definitely comparable to that of Dorian Yates. So he had a bright future in front of him, but unfortunately, this happened. He broke both knees, destroyed the quadriceps, and his career was, as a matter of fact, finished. Right? But then again, he was one that started, one of the few that started the pregnancy era. And after that, guys, it was pretty much pregnancy daily bonanza. Look at him. This is, as you guys know, a pregnant version of none other than Mr. Kai Green. Off season, but then again, there we go. Dennis, the Menace James. Pregnancy 101, you had your time, bro. This was Hadithia, still competing in the 212 category. When he turns, he let it go, bro. Let it go. King Kamali, daily, pregnancy all day and daily. I don't salute your version, bro. There we go, Nasser Somebody, my God bless his soul. And Ronnie Coleman caught with that belly, daily. This was last year, as you guys know, the little skirmish between Kai Green and the reigning Mr. O. Feel the gift heat. I'm sorry, here you were more like feel the gut heat. I cannot salute that. Of course, he was caught. Of course, there was like a little skirmish, so he was not concentrated, and the gut showed. But the camera was still rolling, bro. I don't know. This was. His name is De La Rosa, I guess. This guy, I forgot his name, Kafalnikos, I think. He's from Greece, right? This is none other than Dennis Wolf. When he turns, he let it go. There we go. This dude was looking at him. What the hell is that, right? So you got, this is probably the X-Man, right? This is, again, Dennis Wolf and Jay Cutler. When they turn, they let it go, bro. That's what's up. Again, Dennis Wolf. This guy, I forgot his name. One of the craziest biceps, but also he has a peak in his belly. Right? And this was a bonanza, guys. It is the state right now. This was, by the way, the Arnold Classic, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago. And it was one of the craziest belly showcase, bro. Of course, you cannot dismiss Marcus Rule. You had a bottom bubble gut. And that's what's up, guys. This is Phil Heath. Right, but that was the problem. Now let's go back to the current era that started this controversy. I collected a photo collage of mandatory poses of the second place in Branch Warren. Right, those are not cherry picked. Those are the official pictures you guys know of MD magazine. I salute them for that. So the second place in Branch Warren versus the controversial place in number 4, Mr. Cedric McMillan. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he said that he does not agree with that, and of course, I salute him for that statement. So let's go with them. Of course, this is not an official pose, and it's not a mandatory pose. It is, you can say, you know, a front relaxed pose, but you know, they still flex. That's what's up. I'm not being biased by all measures. I don't care who you are, I don't care where you're from, female, male. This guy right here looks more aesthetic. You cannot deny that, right? That's what's up. Let's move on. Now, this is a mandatory pose. This is a front lat spread. Well, needless to say, I still go with this guy. I still go with this guy. You can argue that the legs look crazy when it comes to Branch Warren, undeniably, but it is called front lats, right? This guy saturates the pose. You can almost see no air in between, basically, the arms, and no void between the arms and the lat. He closes pretty much the pose, right? It's all skin, it's all muscle. Whereas this guy has a huge gap, as you guys can see. And his lat, this one is just better. Everything flows better, right? It looks more aesthetic. It is undeniable. What is right, it's right. Let's move on. Lat spread, from rear lat spread. Of course, I'll give you that you know, the glutes of Branch are better, arguably, you know, his hamstrings, but again, it is called lat spread, rear lat spread, and it showcases also the V taper, the muscle maturity. I mean, come on, it's night and day. Look at it. I mean, his back looks awkward, you cannot deny that, right? And the rest, look at how the arm flows properly, the mass, the bellies and whatnot. That's what's up. This is I mean, night and day. I mean, lights out, lights out. Should be a deal sealer. I should absolutely not comment on this, with all due respect. If I have to comment about this pose right here, you guys have issue. It is called, by the way, back double biceps. Although you cannot see a single biceps, you know, when it comes to Branch Warren. But look at the details, the V taper. I mean, the muscle maturities look like a snake. Look how it flows. Biceps, shoulders, traps. Whereas here it's something else. Just, I'm sorry, with all due respect, I respect the effort that and the training, the hardcore training that basically Branch Warren puts at the gym. But what is right is right. All right. If I was not right, Arnold would not speak about it, and it would not trigger a controversy. As a matter of fact, I just watched a video of Sean Ray discussing with Bob Chick in MD magazine, and even them, you know, they spoke about it. They spoke about this controversy because it is there, right? There we go. Another mandatory pose is called a side triceps. So you need to show usually your triceps, and if you can, flex your midsection. That's the way to go, to show the intercostals and the abs and whatnot. Look at this. I mean, the chest is sticking out properly as it should be. Even the lower body part, again, I salute, you know, the legs of Branch Warren. They're definitely a sight to be seen. But I mean, those of Cedric are not bad too. You can see the clear separation between the glute and the basically sweep of that hamstring, right? So it's not bad. But look at the upper body, the tricep itself, night and day. I mean, he is struggling to hold the pose. This is not aesthetically pleasing to look at, with all due measures and due respect. Let's go on. Front double bicep. I mean, I'll still go with Cedric. I'm sorry. I'll still go with that. This is a side chest. Usually it showcases, you know, the bicep itself, the tricep, the separation with the deltoid, and you know, the chest and so on. And also the midsection. There you go. You know what? Just for the sake of it, I can argue that probably the Branch has it. Although in my book, I still go with Cedric. But just to showcase, for, you know, for comparison purposes, let's move on. This is not a pose, but you are on stage. So what goes on there is being watched by the judges all the time, right? I see a guy here. This is not a mandatory pose, as I said, but this guy looks aesthetic, where the gut of Mr. Branch is definitely suspect, to say the least, right? This is, again, not a mandatory pose. It does not have a name. You can call it the Sergio Oliva / Arnold / Larry Scott. They all started doing it back in the day, but it is a golden era kind of pose, and night and day. 100% it goes to this aesthetic guy right here. Branch should not do it. He does not get it. He got it all awkward. Look at him. It's all messed up there. Just does not suit him, right? This guy destroys him in this pose. But again, it does not count, since it is not a mandatory pose. It is just for comparison purposes. Again, this is not a mandatory pose. Does not have a name. Sometimes Branch does it, but I did not see a picture of him this year doing it, right? But it showcased the aesthetic. I mean, it goes 100% to Cedric again. Again, this is not a pose, but you know, bodybuilders do it before, let's say, a lat spread or a rear double bicep. Here you can clearly see the imbalance. The symmetry does not exist when it comes to the lats of Mr. Warren, whereas this guy is symmetry. I mean, Christmas tree all day and daily. I mean, you can see that this lat is definitely smaller than this one, and the Christmas tree is awkward. It goes up here and it is down here, right? But what is right is right. The wheels, it's all Branch here, right? It's all Branch. But the symmetry, I'm sorry, he should be dinged for that. There we go. This is a abs and thigh, right? Needless to say that those are definitely flat. Those are not so flat. definitely not so flat, right? That's what's up. This is the most muscular pose. It showcases the muscularity, but also the balance, the bellies. When it comes to the bellies, Branch is not gifted, admittedly. He has small arms, he has no forearms, he has no tricep, and so on. Whereas this guy, he has them for days. The bellies are absolutely outstanding, reminiscent of those of, you know, it's a hybrid between Ronnie Coleman and Lee Haney, for God's sake. So I'll still give it to this dude right here. Let's move on though. Now, the rest of the poses are not even mandatory poses, but they're called, in a sense, you can almost call them, you know, a classical way of posing. He did them just for a show, and unfortunately they did not count. They should. Right now I'm going to give you my opinion what should happen to bring the golden era back, so we can save this discipline. I'm going to give you 3 propositions that the IFBB should consider. They should add. First of all, they should add the vacuum pose. Any kind of, you know, any kind of vacuum displaying pose of your choice. Just like they tell you, do the most muscular pose of your choice, because there are several. You can do the crab, you can do the most muscular, and so on. Just to display your muscularity, they should tell you, let's do a vacuum pose of your choice. It can be the front double biceps, it can be anything, as long as you display it, right? That's it. The second thing they need to impose is the V-taper complementing pose of your choice. You need to choose a pose that complements your V-taper, right? Let's say, I'm going to show you a real example of there we go. It could be even this one, or even this one, as long as you display your V-taper, basically the ratio between the upper back and the lower back. As long you can choose of your choice. So that's the second mandatory thing they need to add to the poses. And a third element should be, they need to definitely note the classical presentation. Those kind of poses that basically have no name, right? That usually people do in the pre-judging. Because you see guys like Branch Warren, when he comes into stage, he does not do this. All he does is mandatory poses repeatedly, even in his routine. No, they should impose to you in your routine to do some ground poses like this, some, you know, some artistic posing. So those are the 3 things they need to add to bodybuilding judging nowadays. And believe me, if they impose this, they will save it. So I repeat, first thing they need to do is to impose a mandatory vacuum complementing pose. Secondly, a V-taper complementing pose of your choice. And thirdly, the artistic side of the presentation of the posing needs to be noted as well, right? And it needs to be with a good grade. So if they add these 3 poses while keeping the rest, keep the mandatory poses, you know, front double biceps, you know, abs and thighs, and so on. But add these, so you will impose to the competitor to bring the golden back era. That's it, guys. Salute you wherever you are. Don't forget to like the video and tell me what you think about it.